Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Just a FYI, we're not going to roll the intro first. I want to make it very clear. Today's live stream is just about policy. I do not give two flying poops who you voted for and why you voted for them. This is about a housing policy, and we're going to be going over an article, and we're going to be talking about it like grown-ups. I'm not going to have any name calling, so I'm just going to let you know that now. Eddie, if you want to go ahead and roll that intro, go ahead. It's up.
Get ready! Kristina's live stream is about to start!
Tiny homes, big dreams, stacking up the cream. Modular escapes, not just what it seems. Locks in a box, making mad streams. Affordable palace fitting in the beams. Kristina on the stream, showing schemes to the team. Tiny living planes, soaring high supremes. Locks in a box, making mad streams. Affordable palace fitting in the beams.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so we do now have a new president-elect. And everybody's been talking about the tariffs and what that means and what that could possibly mean for housing. And I found a really good article that weighed out both sides. So that way everybody feels like they got a fair shake. Whenever I do live streams and we talk about these things, I always say you can talk about any policy you want, but we're not going to play the name calling game. So that's why I started off the stream that way, because I don't want this to turn into something that's just petty and ridiculous. I want to have a real discussion with you guys in the audience about what this could possibly mean, or if it means nothing, that what the scare tactics say. So I want to get your opinion. Eddie, if you could go ahead and pull up the article, please, I would greatly appreciate it. I would appreciate it, my friend. Eddie's going to pull that up. Okay. It says home prices could soon change very drastically, according to real estate experts. Let's just hear if we know any of these names that are real estate experts. Okay. All right. In the news, heard around the world this week, after months of rallies and campaign trails, Donald Trump was elected to become the 47th president of the United States. A new administration changes so many types of policies, foreign, domestic, economic. But how will it impact the real estate market? All right, let's scroll down. Despite a strong mandate from voters, the impact of the housing market remains a toss-up. The chief problem with housing market faces is a lack of supply, which we estimate is a shortage on about 2.5 to 7.2 million homes accumulated over the last decade. The Republicans' plan includes curbing unnecessary housing regulations, which Hale says could add up to approximately $90,000 to a price of a home. So if you guys don't know, Eddie, please don't take this article off. But if you don't know, whenever they talk about regulations on housing, they're not necessarily talking about the way that the house is built. So during the planning process of any specific home that's being proposed, the community itself takes forever, a ridiculous amount of time to have certain people look over plans and then have those other people's plans that were looked over again. Then they have 50,000 meetings before anything is approved. Whenever you're doing the development process of a neighborhood or land, that process takes forever. The second thing that takes a very long time is the actual permit to get the house. So let's just say a company like D.R. Horton or, another big brand that builds basically the same exact house over and over again, and they're only changing the front exterior. Everything else in that house is the same. Each one of those plans has to be approved one at a time. So the permitting office is clogged up with this same thing. Yeah, we've already done this. We got to click, 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 click. So that's the type of regulations they're talking about. All right, Eddie, if you could scroll down a little bit, I'd greatly appreciate. The efforts to reduce the regulation could make it easier for builders to add to home prices at lower price points, so potentially accelerating a much-needed trend that is already underway. Expanding the supply could also making federal lands available for the housing development. And if you remember a live stream that I did about I don't know, maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, we talked about the two housing plans. We compared the two affordable housing plans from both candidates at that time and what they were planning on doing. With Trump's plan, he was saying that he was going to take federal land that was available. He didn't say what federal land, but federal land that was available and make it so that developers could build housing. We don't know where that's located at. We don't know what that means for anything. I mean, there's federal land. There's some federal land in the middle of the city, believe it or not. But I mean, if it's in the middle of nowhere, it really does no good. You're going to release this land to who? So, I mean, that's still up in the air if that's going to really make a difference. Okay. It says now, so does this mean the election results are a good thing for the real estate market? Not so fast. Though Trump does plan to reduce inflation, Hale points out the proposed tariffs and mass deportation policy could negatively impact the housing market. Reducing immigration could severely hurt the labor supply needed for new home building, since up to a third of residential construction employment consists of foreign-born workers. The consequences of that could include a reduction in the homeowner's equity via falling home prices and a contraction of employment in the home building sector, which could spill over in the effects of the broader economy. All right, let's scroll down again. It will be some time we understand the election's full influence of the real estate market, but some communities might notice a change sooner. In a recent study conducted by Realtor.com, 23% of its participants claim that the politics influence where they ultimately decided to live. The report found that the political sorting phenomenon is more common with millennial, liberal-leaning individuals and more engaged voters. Okay, so the other thing, let's get back down to the tariffs part. Isn't there a part about the tariffs? No, there isn't. Okay, I want to talk about the tariffs. Maybe it was for another article. I should have brought that up. Okay, two things. If anybody's been on a construction work site, you'll know that a lot of those people that work at those construction sites may not necessarily be documented workers, but a lot of them are, like your farm workers, and a lot of construction workers are documented workers and they're working on visas. This proposed plan could possibly make these people not be able to work here anymore. That would make more required of people in the United States to work, which would not going to work for the smaller incomes, right? They want to be paid more for their service. So in turn, if your labor costs go up, that means that the home price is going up. The second thing is about tariffs. So if you guys remember back during the pandemic, and I've been looking at this all weekend. If you guys remember back during the pandemic, two things caused, well, there was more than two things, but one of the things that caused home prices to really skyrocket for brand new housing was the cost of supplies. And the number one supply that was causing the most problem was lumber. That lumber was costing so much, not only because of the squeeze of shipping and blah, blah, blah. It was because of tariffs. And because the supply was shrinking so quickly, and they had a tax on top of it, lumber prices soared for home builders. So that cost went back on to who? You, the consumer. The builder isn't going to eat that. So if you start thinking about all these things that we don't manufacture here, for instance, drywall from Germany, a lot of the electrical stuff that goes into the house, your panels for your home security, that kind of thing. If all those things get tariffed, it doesn't mean that the builder is going to eat the cost. It means that the cost of the home is going to go to you. It freaked me out. Like I hope that the whole idea of tariffs isn't as strong as he proposed in his campaign. I'm not a big fan of this at all. And it's just my opinion, but I'd love to hear your opinions on this. The cost to tariffs isn't to the other country, it's to us as a consumer. Steven says, four words, $1 trillion trade deficit. It's mostly stuff we use to make and offshored. Right. But do you know why it was offshored? Because us as a consumer wants to purchase less expensive things. The most expensive thing that we have here in the United States is labor. So whenever that happens, that's why the labor moves to other countries so they can build it cheaper for us to want to purchase it. That's what happens. Charlton says, also, a lot of drywallers are illegal immigrants and have been that way since the 80s because no one likes to hang drywall board. Yes. And, a lot of the roofers here in Louisiana, I would venture to say that most of them are not documented. I would say I know for a fact here in my area, most of the people that do the pools are not documented. They all have EIN numbers. They all are paying taxes, but they're not legal citizens. So anyways, now let's, I want to let everybody know that whatever your opinion is about this policy, I would love to hear, even if it's negative or you want to say something silly about me, I don't care. I do not love this idea for tariffs for other countries bringing in trade. Eddie, can you show that chart, please? I wonder if the mobile home will get more expensive or affordable. So if building supplies, no matter what sector you're in, and I was just talking to a guy who's in the modular home business, and he's building houses. They're 1 bedroom, 2 bath houses, or maybe it's 1 bedroom, 2 bath houses. They're a flat price of $95,000. He builds the same house over and over and over again. And I asked him about this particular thing, like how would tariffs affect your business? And he said, well, they wouldn't be $95,000 anymore. There's no way I could do that. He said, even though the labor is here in the United States, these are all put together in the United States. A lot of the components that go into our houses come in from other areas like China, like Mexico, like Canada. Like, I can't help that. That's where the wood comes from. That's where the components for these chips come from. They come from those countries. So the cost would go up. I have no choice. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. It says, only 60 games played said, I want to pay cold hard cash if the market declines. A lot of people would like to pay cold hard cash. This is the other thing too. So if the housing supply gets more expensive, right? So home builders have no choice but to increase the price of the house. That's going to push new home buyers away from those newer homes and go towards existing homes. And so those existing homes, then in turn, what happens, because they're in short supply. I mean, many areas don't have even a 6-month supply of homes. That's going to in turn raise the price of homes in your area. If new home construction continues, if it continues to go up, if it does, it's been leveling off and even coming down in some areas where they're offering a lot of incentives, and maybe those incentives disappear because of the fact they can't afford to give them anymore. So it's like there's no breathing room for buyers, according to Goodell. Yeah, well, we'll see. So this is a chart I want everybody to pay attention to, and it has to do with the trade deficit, because a lot of people bring that up. We had a trade deficit way before and beyond. So if you look back in the Obama years, right, those trade deficits, that's where we were at, right? Then you scroll over to when Mr. Trump was the president, and it, like 2016, you start there. Yep. So it slightly went under, and then it slightly went up again. Then it went up some more. Then it went up some more. And then, we gotta remember too, this is like during the pandemic. So then 2020 hits, we're in a heap of poop. Then that trade deficit really expands, but then it started coming down again. If we follow the pattern of how things happen, it's predicted that trade deficit could go down. But if the tariffs that were being proposed are are put in place, I can't see that trade deficit going down much. That's just the way I look at it. You tell me how you look at it. Like, I want you to tag me in this. So tag me below if you want to talk about this. But tariffs are a tax. Like, I have to point this out. Tariffs are a tax. And the tax, even though it seems like, well, Mexico's going to pay for it or China's going to pay for it, they're not going to pay for it to bring our stuff in. What they're going to do is the people that need those items are going to say, oh my gosh, now this 10-cent item is now 30 cents. So in turn, in order for me to sell it to make the spread of money that I need to make, I'm going to go ahead and sell that for an additional 30 cents than before. They're not going to eat that cost. And, the other foreign country isn't going to eat that cost. It's the person that's trying to get that item from that country. That's how that works. Dan in the dirt said, he also said, if we make U.S. made goods, they'll get a nice fat tax break. Made in line in America, baby. Yeah, that's you know what? And you're right. That is a thought process. But the reason why a lot of the jobs went over to other countries is because of the cost of labor here. And if anything has taught us anything, is that corporate greed in the last 5 years is outstanding, right? And if they have a reason to say, well, the reason why we have to raise this cost is because of the tariffs, they're going to come up with another reason, just like they always said the supply chain issue, when it wasn't even a problem for them because they got everything in from the United States, like toilet paper. Remember how expensive toilet paper was? It's still made here. All toilet paper is made here in the United States. So is paper towels. All your paper goods that you get here is made in the United States. But you know what? We saw those prices go up because they said, well, the public thinks that it's going to get, rise in price. So we're going to try to stretch it as far as we can to as far as the market will tolerate so we can make the most money. Do you think that if they got a tax credit or a tax break, that these corporations are going to say, well, you know what? Why don't we give it back to the people and bring down the price? You are fooling yourself. They're just going to look at it as another way they can get another fat bonus and how they can go to their shareholders and say how much more money they got. No, that's just not how it's going to work. I promise you. The companies aren't looking out for you and me. That's for darn sure. They're looking at how they can make the most money they could possibly make. And if they can come up with another reason to make things more expensive so they can get a bigger CEO check at the end of the year, that's what they're going to do. Wes says, tariffs won't have one thing to do with housing. You really don't think so? Why is that, Wes? Why do you think that? Because if you looked at the steel prices and the lumber prices during that time when home prices were going up really high, the builders kept saying, well, the cost of lumber and steel is so incredibly expensive. And that's why we have to raise the price of the house. You don't think that that's going to cause home prices to go up if there's a tariff on items that they need to build a house? Like, I would love to hear your input on that. We do have a call-in service as an AI service. It's my voice, but it's an AI robot voice of me, and she's rude as all hell. She always interrupts you. I'm sorry about her. I'm trying to work on her. She's just angry, apparently. But we have 4 calls today, so just to let you know. JF says, opening up land for development will mean nothing. Land is available everywhere. It's just the middle of nowhere. No one wants to live there, period. Well, the land development in certain areas. Now, I'm being honest. There are federal lands in areas that you wouldn't even know. And you're like, I drove past that all the time. Why haven't they made this into a housing community before? And it was because it was federal lands. Like, some people are alarmist. They're like, they're going to take away our national parks. No, they're not. Let's not be ridiculous. I agree with you. If it's in a federal lands in the middle of nowhere, who's going to buy that? That doesn't even make any sense. But if it's in some of these areas that, that have people living there and it's just sitting there. What do they own it for anyway? So they might as well open that up to development. That to me makes sense. But they're not going to dig into the national parks. I hope not. Anyways, I didn't read it that way. I don't feel like that's what it was proposed. There's always alarmists on each side, and they give you the worst case scenario. I can't imagine Yosemite Park, all of a sudden has a housing community development right in the middle of it. I really hope that isn't what they intend. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. Every time it says, sometimes when I think, oh, that will never happen, then stuff happens, and I'm like, oh, I was wrong about that one. Whoopsie. But from my perspective of what they're saying about federal lands, it's just those lands that are just sitting there. There's no usage for them. They're not necessarily for preserving the environment. They're just there and they own it. And so you might as well turn it into something that's usable. So anyway, so you know what? We have calls that have come in this week. We're going to be getting to this in just a minute. Eddie wants me to read this one. It says, Mark Avon, everything's soared. I was setting up land and a mobile home at the time, and it took 2 years to set up because everyone was behind about 3 months at least. Yes, during the time of the pandemic is what I'm assuming that you're saying, is that there was a timeline that took way longer than it did prior to the pandemic. We had so many supply chain issues. I mean, how many times did we hear that on the news? Supply chain issues. But those supply chain issues dragged everything, because even though you may have the workers to do the setup, you still hadn't gotten your doors in, from Germany. You still hadn't gotten your alarm system in from China. You still didn't get your the lighting set up from Sweden. It just took so much longer. So it did drag out the process for a lot of home builders, whether it was modular, manufactured, mobile, RVs. People took a lot longer, and it wasn't their fault. It's just they didn't have all the tools that they needed to get those houses done. So yeah, it dragged out. Yes, I am in Louisiana. I am in Louisiana. That is correctamundo. So Eddie, if you could pull up that first question, it's from Betsy in Ohio. She had a question about mobile homes since we're talking about it. Go ahead and throw that up on the screen. I greatly appreciate it. Byron says, so are you saying that the U.S. doesn't factor in the tariff costs into foreign governments' imports? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the proposed tariffs that have been proposed, nothing has happened yet. What I'm saying is that if it goes the way that it was proposed, your home costs are going to go up, period. like that's it. I mean, that's what it is.
Hello, this is Betsy from Ohio. I have kind of a strange question. I'm looking to get land at some point and either build a house or buy land with an existing house, and I want to get some acreage. And I would like to get some mobile homes to put on the property to use as storage buildings, and it would be like a cheap way of doing climate-controlled storage. And I'm trying to find a mobile home company. I know now they're called manufactured home, but I'm still calling them mobile. A mobile or manufactured home company that would be able to custom design me like a storage building. I don't need windows. I don't need plumbing. I don't need kitchen cabinets. I just want a shell of a building with carpeting and, HVAC, and I want to do a climate-controlled storage building, hopefully built by a mobile home company, because I thought it'd be cheaper. Do you know of any companies that are willing to custom design something like that? Because I figured it'd be a lot cheaper than a full-blown mobile home that has, plumbing and all that stuff in it, So do you know any of those companies that would be willing to design that for me? I've talked to a few companies, and they said that they wouldn't do it, but I'm thinking there's zillions of companies out there, and I just was wondering if you know of somebody that would be willing to do that. Thank you. I love your show. Love your show very much, Kristina. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. I appreciate you. So here's the thing. Modular home companies are building to HUD standards, and they're building homes for owner occupants. So they don't really custom design, because what makes manufactured housing or mobile home housing inexpensive is that they're building the same thing over and over and over and over again. So once you start customizing it, that's when becomes a lot more expensive. Modular home companies will customize, but again, you customize, it makes it harder for them, and it's going to take more time, and they usually don't want to do that. What I'd suggest you want to do is, if you're just wanting a mobile home for storage, right, and you want it to have like HVAC, go to a repo and find old manufactured homes that already have the HVAC system in there, because you're just using it for storage, and get those. You won't be able to use them ever for living, right? And you just need them for storage. So just find ones that have already been pre-owned or foreclosed on, and use those instead of trying to find somebody cheaper, because you're going to make the most money by finding something that's been repossessed. I've seen it here in Louisiana. Somebody got a one-year-old manufactured home. It still had the tags inside of it. These people put it on their property. They didn't get all the permitting involved. They let it go to foreclosure. It never was lived in, never. And they got this humongous mobile home for $6,000. $6,000 because these people didn't do the right thing. So you can find some really good deals. What you need to do is find out where your local credit unions are, and ask them when they have their auctions for items, because they'll auction off all sorts of things. They're going to auction off RVs, auction off boats, and they'll auction off mobile homes. They will never be permitted for living again, because they've already been moved. Once they've been moved once, that's it. You can't use them for a mortgage again. So just know that. But if you're just using for storage, look at repos. Those are cool glasses. Yes, thank you. They're reading glasses. I can't, like, when I'm doing this, I have to like do this in order to see. So I got these. They're just little readers. They're not anything fancy. I didn't go to the eye doctor. Louisiana, what part? I'm in outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Yep. Question: how do I buy an undeveloped parcel that's not for sale? Rafiz Parish tax assessor says blank parcel has no owner. So I would go to the tax assessor's office and then go to planning and zoning and ask them how you could be the owner of that piece of property. You know what's really crazy is, you know how we're talking about federal lands? That may be a federal land. So you may want to check that out as well to find out. But everybody's owned by something, right? And if you know anything about Louisiana, they will take a title and they will track it all the way back, and they'll find some ancestor somewhere that has to sign off on that piece of property before you're ever able to buy it. And so that's what I would do. I would go to the tax assessor's office and I go to planning and zoning and see how you can purchase that property. Now, if they end up digging up the owner, what you can do is contact them, write them a letter and say, hey, it looks like you are the owner of this property. You may not have known that. I would like to purchase it from you. And then you would work with a title attorney in order to get this worked out. It's going to take some time, though. That's a lot of title work. It's going to be expensive. Yeah. Question: is it possible to use a steel building to get around home building costs, meaning that you could build it to suit your interior at your own pace? You can use a steel building, yes. It depends on your area too, as far as planning and zoning, but you can do a steel building and convert it into a residential building. A lot of steel buildings here that are residential properties here are considered barndominiums. In other states, they would not consider that a barndominium. If you look at the one video I have on this channel about barndominiums, I'm talking about steel buildings, and I got ostracized so badly because I was referring to these steel buildings as barndominiums. And apparently there's different versions of barndominiums. They're great, by the way. And if you have them insulated correctly, they're fantastic. A lot of people do that. Just make sure you're allowed to do that. It's legal for you to do that in your specific area. But it's very common here in Louisiana. People do it all the time. You'll look at it and you're like, do people live in that building? And then you go inside and you're like, holy cow, man, this is nice. You know? They can be beautiful inside. But yes, you can do that. Steel isn't necessarily as cheap as it once was, though. So definitely price that out. Price that out. Nobody wanted to talk about our tariffs. Inflation Proof 28 says, question, can you tell Betsy to reach out to me? I believe I know a company for her. Oh, you know what? Inflation Proof 28. I need you to email me, and you can go to my website, KristinaSmallhorn.com. Click on one of the pink buttons. Tell me in the little comment section there, just say, hey, I want to give Betsy my number in order to help her with her issue on the storage units. And then I'll get in contact with Betsy and I'll have her contact you, because I actually have her phone number. I do have that. I'll give her a little ring-a-ding-a. That's awesome, though. Like, how great is this community that's always willing to help one another? Love you guys. I really do. Lovely Ben Home says, what's the best manufactured home or be used for a rental investment? Thanks, Kristina. What is the best manufactured home or being used for a rental investment? Well, I always say for my investors, the best manufactured homes are the ones that have already been set and put in place. So here in Louisiana, like, we have lots of mobile homes in areas, and they rent like crazy because they usually sit on a piece of land. And usually the renters, for some reason, are always cash renters. They don't deal with checks. They do not deal with Venmo. You have to go to the door and you have to pick up the cash. They're fantastic. So the best mobile home investment is the one that's already located on land. And I'll tell you another reason why it's a good investment. It's very inexpensive to maintain a manufactured home in comparison to other types of properties. To have like windows replaced, decking replaced, roofing replaced, it's a lot less expensive. So you as an investor, that's always a plus, right? The other thing too is later down the road, if this thing starts to like really fall apart, you can either A, replace it with another manufactured home that you could get from a repo, right? You can get from that repo lot, or two, you could also build anything you want, usually on those sites. Now, if you are like Eddie and I always said, we always wanted to own a manufactured or mobile home park. We want to own the whole entire park. And those are always a really good investment for investors. So you may want to check that out as well. The type, if you're trying to figure out like the best name for manufactured housing, there's a lot of them out there. And I would say email me, because I don't want to get in trouble. Email me and you and I will talk. So I don't want to get sued. You know how that goes. I have some names on the top of my don't ever buy list. That's for sure. And I'm sure some of you already know who they are too. Targeted Plants guy says, we are already paying more for imported lumber from Canada from Trump's tariff. Yep, on Canadian wood. However, it's not like Biden got rid of it. Yep. So there you go. Exactly. You are 100% correct. Here's the thing, though, is that was just one tariff, right? If they implement all the other tariffs that are being proposed, who's to say if they're going to? This is what has been said on the campaign trail. That is what I'm talking about. It isn't just one tariff. I'm talking about all the tariffs, because we import a lot of stuff from many different countries, and the countries that are being proposed that we're going to, do a 50% tariff against, that means that product is going to be 50% more. And who pays for that tariff? It isn't the country that's shipping it out. It's the people that have to buy it. In order to buy it, they're going to be paying 50% more, and who they pass that on to? You as a consumer. Yep. Matthew Black says, how will interest rates for mortgage loans change in your opinion? Well, if you saw what happened with mortgage rates this week, they actually went up. So whenever the bond markets react in the future, right? So they are looking at the future. They have their own little crystal ball, and they say, this is what we see in the future. So this is what we project. So we're going to go ahead and raise or drop interest rates now. And once the election was over, they projected something, and then they rose interest rates for this week. I think they're just under 7 now. Like, I think they're 6.85. Eddie, can you look up the interest rates today, please? Eddie's going to pull up the rates for us. He's such a good dude. If anybody doesn't know, Eddie's the guy in the background. He's my producer. He's also my husband, a very good looking man. And he has to sit there behind the screen to do this while I just all of a sudden just say, hey, I'm going to spring this up on him. What's the interest rates this week? Oh, and if you guys want to call into the live stream for next week, the thing is you leave a message now. I will put it up on the screen for next week. All you have to do is call 888-255-0197, and you'll talk to the AI bot, Kristina, who's rude. I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on her. And you leave your message there, and then your question will be put on the live stream for next week. Even if you want to discuss this topic here, it's great to have a conversation. Next week, we're going to be having Kyle Seagraves from Win the House You Love, the mortgage guy, on here. And he will be the one that answers all your mortgage questions. You know, he's a friend of mine. He's a good dude. Eddie, did you find out what the mortgage interest rates are this week? Oh, here, Debbie's got it. Man, I love you. Here we go. 6.79. I thought it was 6.85, but I was wrong. 6.75, and 15-year is 6%. And you know what? It's always a little different for each state, by the way. So like when I'm saying this, I'm just taking an average of the whole entire country, because you can say, well, in Georgia, it's only 6.65. Every state is a little bit different. I'm just taking an average of the whole entire United States, and that's what it is currently, 6.75. Yep. Yeah, Tinkerbell says Eddie keeps the show rolling. That's right, Tinkerbell. Question: how is square footage calculated? Would a one floor 50 by 50 with 10-foot high ceilings be the same as a 50 by 50 one floor 30-foot ceilings? What would be the difference in the two floors for taxes? Okay, so this is a really good question, because appraisal processes work a little bit different in every area. So I'm just going to give you from our perspective here in Louisiana, because that's what I know. So in Louisiana, it's anything that is air conditioned under roof, right? Except if you have like a bonus room that has a separate air conditioning unit. So it's very common here. Most of the houses here, the style is that everything's on one floor. But if you have a bonus room, you only can count half the square footage. So if it was 100 square feet, you only can count 50 of it. I don't know why, but that's how they calculate it. And of course, it's average for the specific area. So if everything's $100 per square foot in the area, that's what the appraiser has come up with. The square footage in that bonus room calculated for your house is only going to be 50 square feet, and it's only going to be $50. It stinks. Now, some areas will say anything square footage wise that is connected. So it's connected. So you could have a garage that was considered square footage if it had been refurbished. If it's been completely refurbished, that could be the same as some areas that refer to basements. As long as it's got air conditioning, it's been drywalled, it looks like traditional house, but you know it's the basement, they can count that as square footage. But again, they could say it's only half the square footage of the upstairs as far as the calculation price per square foot. Every state has their own rules when it comes to this. So it's really important to, understand square footage beforehand when you're talking to your real estate agent, and you need to ask them, is the basement considered part of the total square footage, or is it something else? Make sure you understand that ahead of time. Like I've shown many houses here, and people all the time, they're like, this house is way bigger than 2,000 square feet. And I'm like, yeah, because of the bonus room, but that bonus room isn't really calculated. It's only half the calculation upstairs. And they're like, huh, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, the sellers aren't really happy about it, but that's just how it rolls here in Louisiana. Yep. So like this little office here is not connected to the house in any way, shape, or form. It has its own air conditioning unit. It's literally considered at no value, even though it makes my house more sellable. More, people will be like, oh, this is a great outside office. It does not calculate for the cost of the house. It just makes it more sellable. Yep. Rick Smith said, no one could tolerate living in Louisiana without AC. Amen. Amen. I used to know this lady that lived in northern Georgia, and she had no air conditioning. North Georgia is hot. And every time we go over there, it was like, oh, I felt like I was dying. Charlton has a question. It says, I have been remodeling contractors doing door-to-door Saturday. Do you think that only McMansions will be the only houses built? Okay, so Charlton, this is where the problem with regulations have come in. So the reason why we've seen an explosion of bigger homes and not smaller, more affordable homes being built is because of the cost of the development of the land ahead of time. Those regulations that they're talking about, scaling back, that Trump is proposing to scale back, will make it so much easier and quicker for a builder to build homes. So in turn, that could possibly bring down the cost of the house. Eddie, can you put that back up on the screen? I do think that I'm going to put his question back up here. I do think that people that are in the fix it up business, a DIY business, that those remodeling people are going to be much busier than they have been in the past if the tariff problem becomes a bigger issue. If it does cause home prices to go up and building construction to go up, those rebuilders and remodelers are going to be really busy because people are going to be like, I have a 2.5% interest rate. It's cost twice as much to build this house today than what my mortgage is. I'm just going to go ahead and add an addition onto the house. So yes, yeah, that could happen. All right. Rick Smith says, I think I would pass out in Louisiana if I didn't have air conditioning. I don't know how people do it. My daughter has a car or truck that the air conditioning went out. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let you drive your truck dying of heat. So I let her take my car for the last 6 weeks, because there's no way. It's awful. It's oppressive. It's Africa hot. Some days I feel like I can't breathe. Don't do it. Don't dare it. Louisiana floods too. The people are nice. The food is good. It's just hot. Hot.
Daniel, yes, has the real estate lending market caught up with the crypto?
So Daniel wanted to know if the real estate market has caught up with crypto. So there is some proposed, I don't know if you've seen this, but over the last, since crypto came out, there were a lot more transactions that were, and it grew in popularity, that were done with cryptocurrency. But the seller has to agree in order to buy that house with crypto. Like the seller has to say, yeah, I'll exchange it for crypto. There's also talk that title work and all titles will be on the blockchain. That hasn't happened yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this administration, because there has been more talk about cryptocurrency. We just don't know yet. But yeah, has it caught up? No, not yet. Hasn't caught up yet. We're slow. Real estate is slow. Builders to change their mind about building is slow. So it's going to take a little bit more time. I'm thinking another 5 years before we're ever caught up. Only 60 games played said that god awful humidity mixed with the heat. However, I don't have issues with my allergies. Yeah. Yeah, Louisiana food's good. And if you ever want to come to my house and have a mean pot of gumbo, I can throw down. This New England girl learned how to, from all these Cajuns, make a mean pot of gumbo. And no, it does not have tomatoes in it. God, Those are northern Louisiana people, or people that not from southern Louisiana. No tomatoes in your gumbo. Overjoyed said, question, would remodelers rely on the same materials used to build a new home? How will the tariffs possibly help? Okay. Okay, so the way that some people say that these tariffs could possibly help, and somebody mentioned this earlier in the stream, is that it would force a lot of people to purchase the items. Instead of buying it from overseas, they buy it here in the United States. So we would have more American made products, which really sounds good in theory. But a lot of times, those American made products, the whole reason we're buying them overseas is because of the fact that it's a lot less expensive. People are very price sensitive. So if you take a widget, right? You know, we take this widget, and this widget is $10 here in the United States, but then you go over here and it's the exact same widget. It just happens to be made in China and it's $4.95. People are like, what's the difference? You know, most people, as much as people love to say, I only buy made in America, most of people don't. Most people do not. And so they go for the $4.95 widget instead. That's how it could help. I don't think it would help, but and the reason why it would be good for remodelers is because if your house, in order for it to be built today, is now, let's say, 25% more to build it, and you could just go ahead and build an addition onto your house with the equity that you've already built in your house, and then you have that extra room and you don't have to move locations. Those remodelers are going to be, those building materials are still going to cost them, right? But it's still a lot less expensive than picking up and moving to a new location. So a lot of people choose to do that. I think the remodeling business is no longer to be like, oh, let's just update our kitchen and bathroom. It's like, no, we need more square footage. How do I add on to this space? I think that's where we're heading in more population cramped areas. You know, I'm talking like in the bigger cities. Da 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 da. Question. Heard BlackRock and the like are now starting to unload single family homes. Is this true? No. Okay, they're unloading homes in Florida, but let's be realistic. Why would BlackRock and those homes be unloaded? Why would they not want them anymore? Could it be climate change? Could it be the insurance is too expensive? I mean, because most of them are not going to like go blind without insurance, right? So yeah, in some areas, yes, they're pulling back because, you know, they don't want, it's a risk. There's too much of a financial risk for them. So they're just going to go ahead and pull back. But what they are doing is they're still buying in other areas. And I would not put any credit to any article that you read that says they're unloading all of their single family houses. I call baloney, malarkey. No way, because it's a distraction. They love buying houses. They love it. Makes them so much money. They love that rent money coming in. They're not going to stop anytime soon either. And it isn't like necessarily BlackRock. It's a subsidiary of BlackRock. They end up sitting on the board. Like we'll just say, I'm just going to make up a name like Sunshine Homes, you know, like Sunshine Homes. And then you look at their board members and it says, oh, a member of BlackRock. And you're like, oh, so that's who's doing the Sunshine Homes, you know? Yeah, those LLCs, if you just peel enough layers back, sure enough, it's either Vanguard or Blackstone or BlackRock every single time. I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. It's just either you laugh or you cry kind of thing. Question. My school property tax is going up in January on a $459,000. Do you think our other tax increase will slow down housing? Also, I have a 1,200 square foot home. So anything that has to do with somebody's individual payment going up will cause more forced sellers. A lot of people are payment sensitive, right? And if their incomes have not increased with the amount of inflation, and if you look at the debt that people have right now on credit cards, I think we're going to see a lot more homes hitting the market next year. I don't even see how it couldn't be possible, because I was looking at the credit card rate and how much people have been borrowing, and a lot of people are maxed out. And they're not buying like frivolous stuff, right? They may have when they started with that credit card balance, but now they can't afford their life because their income hasn't gone up. So if their taxes go up and their homeowners insurance goes up, they're going to be forced to sell because they can't afford the payment anymore. So I think we're going to see a lot more of those heading into 2025. You let me know what you guys think, because to me that just makes total sense. Because if you have no place to borrow the money from in order to keep yourself afloat, what happens? You have to start selling things. Have to start peeling back. The Dollar Tree will be $20, but it's not the Dollar Tree anymore. Nothing made me mad when it was I started calling it the $1.50 store, and then it's a $2 store. Proud Liberal 24 says tariffs will not have no or will, all right. Won't tariffs have no or negative effect on home prices by increasing the prices of materials, but the land is high, thus the price will remain high. It either will remain high or it will continue to go up. It's not going to bring it down. If you looked at that article, we are still short. What is it? Between, I think they said 4.6 to 7.2 million homes. If we round that up, like if we just put it straight down the middle, we're just going to say 6 million homes. We're short 6 million homes. We've been short. We have not built enough housing. And the home builders are like, I'm not going to be on the hook for an additional unsold stock of houses. We learned our lesson back in 2008. We're not going to do this again. We're not going to build 100 houses. We're only going to build 50 that we know can sell. And they would rather that happen than have a bunch of overstock and have to bring down the prices of houses. That's what happened in 2008, of various other things, but that's what happened to a lot of home builders. You have to incentivize home builders with tax incentives. You're going to have to incentivize them with cheaper land and deregulation of the whole area itself in order to get those houses put on that land. That's where the prices come down. And if there's some other economic collapse, if people start losing their jobs, they've extended out their credit, they can no longer afford their houses, then homes either start flying on the market, or they go into foreclosure, or we start seeing short sales. We have yet to have seen that increase. I hear anecdotal feedback from appraisers in certain cities that say, oh, I did 4 BPOs last week, and they're saying that all these houses are going to be under foreclosure. I've heard that now for a year, and I've not seen the foreclosure numbers meeting that number. But I can't see that it not changing next year. I'm not saying that there's going to be a ton of foreclosures and we're going to see a financial collapse. I don't see that happening. But I do see that there's going to be some people that are hurting and do need to sell their houses and sell them quickly. And I never want to see an 2008 ever again. Nothing's more devastating to see a family lose their home. But I also never want to see a housing market like we saw during the pandemic, where home buyers were raked through the coals and giving up a ton of money out of pocket just to buy a house. I don't know. There's no happy medium when you see those big swings in the housing market. That's for sure. Overdroth said, they're not slowing down in the villages, now building family neighborhoods, Middletown, and selling out fast. Okay, so the villages is a unique situation in the fact that most of the people that live out there are baby boomers and silent generation. All the houses that were built, most of the houses that were bought during the pandemic, the number one group of people, the number one generation buying homes during the pandemic was baby boomers. They have money and they're willing to spend it, and they're willing to spend it in a place that makes them happy. And if you haven't been out to the villages, it's a whole entire its own economy. I mean, it has its own. It has everything. It has golf courses. It has pickleball. It has tennis. It has swimming pools, and it's all geared around like a really nice, lovely, laid back retirement lifestyle. And, you got to get your little golf course carts and everything else. But in order to keep that economy and that little area running, you need to have younger people that are running the show. Like they're the servers, they're your doctors and nurses and all this other stuff. So yeah, it makes sense that they would have more communities for single family housing. It makes a lot more sense. I hope they do some apartments for the people that work in that area as well. Cause I know like Livingston, which is, I think, is it Livingston? No, Leesburg. Sorry, Leesburg. Wrong city. Leesburg is right around the corner. They have more affordable housing. It takes about 25 to 30 minutes to get there from Leesburg. So yeah, anyway. All right, question. How will the coming changes affect renters? So this is a good question. This is just my guess, my crystal ball prediction. If home prices continue to increase, and it makes it more difficult for people to be able to purchase a home. That means there's going to be more renters entering the market. But if a lot more renters that are like my daughter's age, instead of renting an apartment and struggling that way, they're more apt to stay at home. So there could be two sides of this. Either the rental prices could go up because there's more people trying to get into a rental to be out on their own, or they could go down because people like my daughter's age are saying it's not worth it to me to live on my own. I would love to live on my own. I really don't want to be around you, Mom, but I can't afford it. So I'd rather stay home and save a nest egg. It'll be interesting to see what happens because as this newish generation comes in, they think things a lot different than we did. I'm in my 50s, and the way I thought about it was get me out of this house as quickly as possible. I will live under a cardboard box, and they don't even have a cardboard box that they can afford. So fun fact, you guys, Eddie and I's first apartment, you ready? It was tax credit housing. We had to verify that we were broke in order to live in this apartment complex that we found in Castleberry, Florida. And, we did. We ended up moving there and staying there for a few years before we were able to finally have an income. Rick Smith says the Villages has a lot of crazy seniors living there. Oh, let's just be real honest, though. Is it really just the Villages? I mean, there are crazy people throughout. You could spread that knife across the whole entire United States. It isn't just centered in the Villages. We've got crazy people everywhere. But I know what you're talking about because the Villages I think they hang sponges or loofahs or something from their golf carts to reflect certain things. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to go any further than that. Oh, Debbie says I'm telling the truth. Truth bomb. Hey, Eddie, don't we have another call? I think it was from Amy in New Orleans.
Amy Richard, New Orleans, Louisiana. Are there people interested in a concept that I would like to do where we crowdfund, build tiny homes that you can later put an addition on a regular lot that's permissible in a regular neighborhood?
All right. Well, let's ask the audience here. Do you think it's a plausible idea? Like you basically would get a tiny home. You get a tiny home that later on, like, let's just say it's 1 bedroom, 1 bath. But later on, it's very possible, like a modular home, where you could just stack a new module where you added a new room in the background of the house or on the side of the house. The lot would be big enough for you to be able to add an addition. Do you think there's a market out there for that? I think there is. I mean, wouldn't that be cool to have a house that you could just grow as your family grows? Like you just need another room. Great. And then later on, you could just pick up that room later on, like I don't need this room anymore. I'm older. I want it to come down, right? I want it to come down in size. So you take those 2 little modules out and now you have a 1 or 2 bedroom house again. I don't know. I think it's a great idea. Betty Boo says they are just living their life at the Villages. Oh yeah, they're living the life in the Villages. All right, another fun fact about me. 100 million years ago, I used to live in Florida and I was a waitress, a really terrible waitress at the Villages. And it was at a restaurant called Cafe LA. It does not exist anymore. It was in one of the courtyards. But yeah, I worked there. I was a very, very, very bad waitress. at the villages. Tell us what the loofah means. Google it. I'm not doing that on a live stream. Resurrection Sunday says, question, do you know if the tariffs and the current administration changes will eliminate the agricultural subsidies for home buying? That is a very good question. The tariffs wouldn't do that. That would be another type of policy. They have not said anything in their campaign that would do that. Matter of fact, their affordable housing plan, that was, Agenda 47. If you look, it was very small. It didn't have a lot of details on what their plans were. They didn't say they were going to cut like anything from the USDA as far as loans or any kind of programs. I'm not saying that can't happen. It just wasn't on. It was not in that sheet. If you go look online, Agenda 47, that was not in there. So. Proud Liberal 24 said, do you recommend people change careers, IG, skilled trades to make enough money to buy a home instead of a college degree or start a job? I think, okay, this is a very good question. And I'm going to tell you this. When everybody's telling you to not get a college degree, that's when you get a college degree. When everybody tells you that you you don't need this, then you need it. When I was in school, we had a bunch of different trades in there. We had drafting, we had car mechanics, and all this other stuff. And they said, you didn't need that anymore. You have to go to college. And then what happened? The whole entire market got flooded with people with college degrees. They told us as kids, it doesn't matter if it's in basket weaving, get your college degree. The whole market flooded with all these people with college degrees that meant nothing, absolutely nothing. If you're planning to go to college and get a degree in basket weaving, then just stop. Just go get yourself a trade. Understand what you're doing. Learn how to create your own business with that trade. That's where you're going to make the most money. If you want to be a plumber, become a plumber, apprentice as a plumber, and then figure out how to build a business as being the boss of all the plumbers. Because that's where you're going to make the most money. Same with being a hairdresser, anything like that. But when they're telling these kids, all these kids that are coming out of high school, don't bother with college, what's going to happen is that in 10 more years, they're going to say, we don't have enough college educated students. The job market is suffering because we don't have enough college educated people. If you go to college, pay the money for the jobs that require a college education. My daughter's in physics. Like, I couldn't do that job. No one else could do that job. And she wants to do something with aerospace engineering. Have at it. She's good at it. She's like, she didn't even have to think about it. Yeah. So anyways, yes, I would love to invest in something like a tiny home communities. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are doing that. And oh man, next week, I'm going to put this on the screen. Like I said, there's a guy, he's building these modular homes. They're just a hair above a tiny home, but they're $95,000, right? So if you had a piece of land and you had all of that set up already, you just plop these houses down for $95,000. That's some good stuff. Yep. Debbie says, fun fact, old people still have fun, wink, wink. Yes, they do. And they're, just check out the health records there. I'll just leave it at that. Yep. Real loofers or scrubby balls? Lawnmower. Stop. Oh, Eddie, we have another question from David in Pennsylvania. If you want to go ahead and put that on the screen, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
My name is David Rogers. So I live in Westtown, Pennsylvania, between Lancaster and Westchester. So I have been looking to buy or build. I'm deciding between the two. I have a good amount of money from a previous property that I sold, and I'm trying to make the right decision on what to do with it as far as equity. I really am confused if I should build or buy at this point. I see houses around me that are still going for $50,000 over listing price, and then I see raw land that is still going for $100,000.
Have you thought about consulting with a local real estate expert to weigh these options?
Oh,
So I used to be a real estate agent last week, actually, and I switched over to become a loan officer. So I am pretty familiar with the area and how to get that information. As far as personal preference and timeline goes, my timeline is pretty much unlimited because I am staying with family while I make this decision. And as far as preferences go, I'd love something new, but at the
and then the thing cut off. You hear how AI Kristina is super rude, and in the middle of him talking, she tried to interrupt him. Man, I'm trying to work on her. She's rude. AI Kristina is very rude on that phone number. I'm sorry. Okay, back to his question. Should he build or should he buy? What would be, I want to know what the audience thinks. It is a big process to take on to build a home from scratch. If it was me, I would already buy a built home. I personally would not go the new home route. But that being said, if someone was to like give me the plans already there and I really wanted a custom built home, that would be the only way I would build. I would just buy one that's already available. There's so many builders now that are offering so many incentives currently, and they're even buying down your mortgage rates. So yeah. Oh, everybody's saying buy. Sarge says neither. Yeah. AI Christine is feisty. Yeah, she is. She's kind of grumpy, man. Yeah. So I want to tell everybody this. So do you remember back, I'm talking like when interest rates first started going up, you saw all these lenders and several real estate agents do this thing called, don't worry about it now. Go ahead and date the rate, but marry the house, or marry the house and date the rate. Don't worry. Those arms will be great. And I'm like, I was sitting here on these live streams telling you, please don't do this unless you really need to do this. Could you know how many people did those arms that were like so payment sensitive? Well, a lot of those people's arms are about to come due, right? And if the interest rates are high and those arms are about to reset, people are going to be in a world of hurt. A world of hurt. I think every single one of those people that posted that meme, that date the rate, marry the house people, all of them should be fined. Every single one of them, because you can't break down economics into a meme and force people to sell. Or buy. I'm not saying they force people to buy, but it simplified something that was a very complex issue. And they said, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. Get into this loan. I think some people are in huge trouble for that. I could be wrong. Yep. Yeah, AI Christina is more impatient than anything. I know. I kind of don't like her. She has my voice, but she's kind of a, you know what I'm saying? She is the biggest B word ever. GC Excellence says, depending on the area, I would consider either building or possibly of adding on to an established home if you have a great deal for it, depending on the area and the tax value plus the equity. That is fantastic advice. I concur. I have the best audience. They're the smartest people. They keep me in line. Proud Liberal 24 says, what is something is well built but not permitted? Does it make it very hard to sell? Depending on your state or city, if it is a building that has not been permitted, if you're going to sell it, they may make you tear it down. Because the insurance company says this is an unpermitted building. We're not going to insure the property unless that's torn down. Or even the city could come through and say it's an unpermitted building. You're trying to sell it. You're going to have to tear it down. Not all cities work this way, but a lot of them do. Sometimes you can get the permitting office to come out there and say, hey, how can I get a permit on this building? It's already been established, like what can we do? And they'll give you they'll come out there and they'll say, hey, you have to update the electrical, you're going to have to update, some other things, and then we'll give you the permit for it. And that happens too sometimes when you're selling a house. So yeah, it is very area specific in what your planning and zoning will allow for. Remington has a question. Is there a way for a person with a disability to buy a house or build a house using social exercise or DCI, even they cannot be a certain asset? Is there a way with a person with a disability to buy a house or build a house using social exercise or a DCI, even if they cannot be certain asset? Well, I'm assuming that you're asking, is there any programs for people with disabilities in order to purchase a house? Every state has their own programs. Every single area has their own programs. So even like the state of Louisiana will have some social programs that help people get into homes that have disabilities. But there might be one right here in like Livingston Parish that has an additional grant on top of it that allows for you to add like disability access, like ramps or widening showers, that kind of thing to the house. So you're going to have to check with your local area. And a lot of times when you look at those big lenders, like the really big ones that are national lenders, they don't know what your local programs are. So check with a local lender in your area, local mortgage broker that can help you with those programs. So home loans for disabled adults are widely available. People with disabilities are not only eligible for mortgage, but they also have access with specialized home loans and grants to help disabled people to buy a home. Well, it's just what I said. These specialized disability home loans often feature more lenient credit score requirements and lower down payments. Some even offer grants to cover the cost of modifications and more accessibility. Boom. What did Kristina say? Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for confirming what I just said. I love that. I love that I know some stuff. Oops. What happened? Oh, no. Oh, no. What happened? Why did my camera go off? Oh, no. Hold on. Am I there? Oh, you know what happened? There's a little there's just one tiny wire. My foot hit that wire, and that's why the camera went off. I'm so sorry. I'm back. Maggie Smith says, question, I got pre-approved for a loan in 2020 and found that I had to buy a house costing more than 90,000. Are the ceilings for loans higher now? You'll have to check with your mortgage broker. A lot of that has to do with your debt to income ratio. So you may find out that you qualify for more or even less depending on your DTI. That's your biggest thing, your credit score and your debt to income ratio. Because I've known people that their credit score is like over 800. They have an 800 credit score, but they also have debt to income to the max. They have credit card their whole life and you wouldn't even know it. They're like driving those fancy BMWs. Mom drives a Volvo van. They all look, dressed to the nines. Kids are in private school and they can't afford anything because they can't afford a house because their debt income is like shot. Proud Liberal 24 has another question and says, does a house in the land ever sell for less than the value of the land due to poor condition of the house? So what happens is that it will sell, even though there's a house on that piece of land. What they'll say is structure on the property being sold at no value. So they're just selling it for the cost of the land, even though there's a house there. That's why I always tell people when you're buying land, look for pieces of land that already have a structure on there. You may have to pay the money to tear it down, but at least you don't have to worry about the utilities going out there. You know that it already has water. It will be a pain in the butt to get rid of that house. And the city may require you to tear it down, but you can get a good deal on that because the people that own that piece of land didn't have the money to tear down the house or get rid of that manufactured home or trailer home that's on there. So you can get a good deal that way. I always tell people, look for those first because it could save you a hell of a lot of money. Is that Eddie? No, that's not Eddie. He was looking at this other little meme. That's not Eddie uses that as his picture for himself. Overjoyed says, I like that sweater. Where did you find it from? I know I love sweaters. I live in the subtropics. Yeah. So this came from Amazon. Boop, boop. And I have to tell you, my family gave me so much garbage about this sweater. I gave them a picture of it. I showed it. I'm like, I'm going to get this sweater. My daughter goes, that looks like it's made of felt and it will get ruined by the first time you wash it. My husband was like, I don't know about that sweater. I don't really like it. And then I wore it. I wore it for a video, and they were like, I really like that sweater. I'm like, I know. I was right. Yeah, the poll result says, will tariffs increase home prices in 2025? 49% of you said yes. I agree with 49% of you. 25% said no. 23% said they don't know. And only 2% said they didn't know what a tariff was. Well, I will say this. A tariff is a tax. And that's what you need to know. A tariff is a tax. And it's usually on the company shipping in the product into a different country, right? So back in the day, the Boston Tea Party, remember, the tea and the taxes, and everybody got really mad and started throwing tea into the river, and it caused all that problem. Well, that was all due to what? Tariffs. Tariffs. Yep. Proud Liberal 24. Is it true that homes near pickleball courts sell for less due to the noise? And I know that you probably saw that article. There are some people that are really, really, really ticked off about pickleball. They are super mad about pickleball because of the noise that it makes. Now they are making pickleball balls that don't make that noise, that popping noise, because it is louder than a traditional tennis ball. So they are making sound, not proof, but sound less pickleball balls. Am I saying that right? I don't know. I'm not a pickleball person, but yeah, it has been difficult. So this is how crazy people are. They have arranged showings at times that they know that there isn't as many people playing pickleball. Like, oh, you can only show the house between like noon and 3 o'clock, or from 10 a.m. to 3 o'clock during the week. Like nobody can go to it, see the house on the weekend, because they don't want people to know how incredibly noisy those stupid pickleball courts are. I'm saying stupid, but you know what I mean. Yeah, we'll see. Who knows? Don't forget that if you want to share this and talk about tariffs with your friends, you can always share this live stream out. And I'm also on anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can go to anywhere you listen to podcasts, find Kristina, Real Estate for Everyone, and you can hear this podcast. It will be uploaded first thing in the morning on Monday morning. Eddie does that. If you want to call in a question for next week and you want to talk about anything real estate related, even this right here, where you can talk about tariffs and the cost of home prices coming up, you can call 888-255-0197. You get to speak to evil, grumpy, rude AI Kristina and leave a message there on on your real estate question. Hopefully she won't be too rude to you. I'm sorry. I'm working on her. She's just a feisty little AI. I'm working on her. I want to say thank you to our moderators today and keeping the chat clean, especially on such a sensitive subject. I appreciate every single one of you. If you need to get a hold of me, and I know there were several of you that were asking some questions in the chat, go ahead and click on any of the pink buttons. Leave me your email address and your phone number, and I can give you a call and we could talk about your real estate needs. Even if you're looking as a brand and you want me to talk about your specific product, I can do that as well. Christine is not opposed to promoting a product to make a little extra income. Real estate's tough these days. All right, everybody, we'll see you next Sunday. I look forward to every single one of you. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with me, hour and 18 minutes. And I can't wait to see your glowing, beautiful faces next week. All right, everybody, Eddie, go ahead and roll that outro. Yeah!
Kristina signing off. This dream's about to close. Tiny homes, big dreams, the wisdom she bestows. Real estate queen, always keeping us in toes. Hustle on 1,000, every vibe she shows.